Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we're going to be going on a journey back and forth in time. We're going to be time travelers trying to succeed in a specific mission. Now this mission is called Asylum, and it comes with the base game here in Time Stories. This is sort of what they call a deck exploration game. It's an adventure game where you're trying to solve a puzzle together. It's a cooperative game. It's brought to us from Space Cowboys, who brought us Splendor and Elysium, and through Asmodee in the US. It says 2 to 4 players, more on that later. And it is 90 minutes about per game, but each game, it might take you about 4 to 6 games to finish it completely. This is sort of a different consumable type adventure. I'll talk more about that in detail now. This is going to be no spoilers. I am going to show you how the game's played. I am going to show you some artwork, but nothing I'm about to show you is nothing you can't find by reading the rulebook or by going on Space Cowboys' website. Let's take a look. Now, Time Stories itself comes with a game. It comes with a board, it comes with lots of tokens and things like that to play the game. It comes with pawns and dice. So you can play this with multiple scenarios. The game comes with one scenario called Asylum. This is a deck exploration game where it is going to be sort of a consumable game where once you've gone through this, through the full game of this, which will probably take anywhere from like 4 to 6 hours most likely, you probably won't play this again because you'll know all the story and plots. So it comes with a game and one scenario, and there'll be multiple scenarios that you can add to this and use the game to play with a different deck with a different story in the future. Now, I'm not going to show you anything that you can't find on your own on Space Cowboys, the publisher's website, or in the rulebook that you read. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to be choosing a character, or called a receptacle in this game, because you're basically taking over one of these characters' bodies. And you will look, and on the back of there has some information about them and some special abilities. But you can see the artwork. I want to show this off. Is that there is this isn't all the characters, but this is most of them. And again, this is readily available right on their website, so I'm not giving away anything. No story plots. Just showing you the artwork in the game and the characters or receptacles that you get to pick. Now, over the course of the game, what you'll be doing is you'll be moving around to locations, you'll be finding out story plots, and you'll be maybe rolling some dice in some different challenges, maybe even some combat. And as that happens, you'll be spending some time, and basically what's going to happen is you're going to go through and learn a bunch of stuff, and eventually you'll get to time 0, and you stop the game and you'll essentially reset the entire game. Some items you may be able to keep, most of them you won't, but then you start back over and you keep notes on what you've learned and what's important and what's not and where you want to go, and with that information you go again. Each of those is called a run. Now, the typical game can take, I think from what I've heard and what I feel and what I've seen, is anywhere between about 3 and 5 runs it will probably take you to finish a scenario. So in each run takes between 60 and 90 minutes, I'd say, to do that. So how does a turn work and what are we doing here? Again, this is just the map of the asylum that's at the beginning of the game there. Again, I'm not giving any spoilers out because this is just information readily available, no secrets here. Essentially what you'll be doing is you'll be moving from different locations to locations, and everyone moves together. So this is your entire party, and over the course of the game you'll be moving to different rooms. In this case, you actually start the game in the day room. And so let's take a look, because if we were in the day room and we got there, and when you go to a location, what you do is you go through this deck of cards. You go through carefully because you don't want to see a lot of the cards that are there. But this is like, there's lots of items, for example. And obviously this doesn't give away information. There's lots of items that are numbered 1 through about 30-ish, and you'll be getting those secretly looking at them at some point during the game. There's also a bunch of locations that are in there. In these locations, you grab the location that we're in this case it's the day room, and basically it tells you how many cards are in it. Now, this picture of the day room is actually on their website. It's part of their marketing, and I'm not going to show you the backs of these cards, which has some secret spoiler information. I'm just going to show you the artwork and basically what you're doing during the game. Now here you see the location day room, and on the left you have the card A. And below that you see A, B, C, D, E, F. That shows you how many cards are in this specific room. And as you notice, as I go left to right, you'll see day room B, C, D. But the coolest thing is, first of all, the artwork is amazing. And you'll notice it makes an awesome panoramic picture of the room. And so what happens is you put this location out like this, make sure all the cards are there. Some rooms actually have more cards than this. And the leader of the round would essentially grab this card, read it to everybody, and it would basically tell you what's going on and what's, more a little about each of these certain day rooms. And then people would decide, maybe this guy wants to go here, maybe these two guys want to go together here, and maybe this person wants to go there. Now, when you're getting into a location for the first time, everyone gets to go to this, and each person would now flip this card up, read it to themselves, and figure out what's going on. Some of them might just be a story, some of them might let you do something special, some of them might be a challenge. But what happens is when you read this card, you place it back down, and you cannot read it to all the other players. In this case, there's two people in this room. They can both read it together or pass it to each other how they feel fit, and they both get to read it verbatim. But what happens is once you read a card, you can't just tell it to everybody else. You basically put the card down and you paraphrase in your own mind, in your own imagination, in your own phrasing, in general, what's going on with this spot. And that's really the key of this game. It's kind of like not a storytelling game, but it's sort of a story manipulation game where you're telling people what you saw and then telling them what you think you should do, and you're cooperatively working together to try to succeed this mission. So you would do this, you'd look at these, and then we would decide what to do. So after you've gone to the location for the first time, you basically have three options. And what happens is everyone spends one time together. So we've spent 1 unit of time, and for that unit of time, every one of us gets to do one action. So what happens is the action is, one is you can move to a different location. And then when you get there, basically you would be able to read this card in the back and see what's going on. Maybe this guy wanted to move here because these guys have a challenge they need to face. And so one thing is you could do is you could move. A second thing you could do is just do nothing. Maybe this guy just stays there for no reason, does nothing. The third thing is you could do a challenge. Maybe when these guys looked at this location, there was a challenge on this card that requires some type of dice rolling. And he asked this guy to come over. So this guy came over. And this turn, these two guys are going to get to roll because they were already here. This guy moved here for this turn, and he'll have to wait till next turn to help roll. So maybe there's a challenge here. Now this is not a spoiler, this is just one of the characters in the game, and this is freely open information that you could find out anywhere, but on the back of the character sheets it tells you a little bit about them. They have special abilities and things like that. For example, this lady doesn't like solitude, so when she's on a space with no other agents, she rolls one fewer die than normal. However, when she's on with other agents, all present in the same space, she rolls one more die. So there's three different types of challenges you'll find in this specific scenario. There's combat where you're fighting something, there's some influence where you're trying to talk to somebody, then there's just another one with, I forget exactly what it's called there. But this tells you how many dice you would use. So in this case, if this was this one here and she was with somebody, essentially if all other living agents were there, she would get an extra die. Let's say everybody was there with her. So she would get 3 dice. And when you roll these dice, essentially, that's 1 success. This would be 2 successes. Obviously, this would be not a success. And in this case, when you're doing this would have been a non-success too. So that she would have gotten 3 success. Now, different challenges have different things. For example, if this was just a general challenge, it would have, let's say, 3 shields there. They have nothing on the back. And what this means is we have to have a success of 3 in order to beat this challenge and get the reward that's on that card. So if she had rolled 3 and she was successful, essentially for each success she would take a shield away, and if she got all 3, it would be success. If she only had basically 2, then 2 of them would be gone and 1 would be left for the other person who's there to roll and try to beat. Now there's other types of shields that may be in some types of things. Is basically there might be something like this. And you'd have to get rid of all the empty shields first and then get rid of the heart shield. And if at the end of your turn there's a heart shield still there, you would lose a life. So she would start with 3 life tokens, and if she had lost a life, if she's basically loses all life, she dies and she's done for about 7 units of time when she can come back. Now instead of a heart shield, sometimes there's a time shield, and anytime you end your turn on this challenge and this isn't gone, you would lose 1 unit at a time. And of course that's bad, because once this gets to 0, your run through is finished. And sometimes there'll be combat with some shields like that with the skull on them, and essentially if there's any skulls left and you rolled one of these, you would take damage of the dice skulls plus these skulls, 1, 2, 3 in this case. And if it's greater than my resistance, in this case it is, I only have a 2 resistance, but there were 3 skulls, I would have lost a life. After everyone has done something, either moved, done a challenge, or done nothing, we decide what to do again. Maybe they need to roll again, and this guy wants to move over here and help them. This guy who moved last time is going to roll. So these 3 guys are going to do a roll for the challenge. This guy just moved. But we've spent 1 unit of time to do that. So over the course of the game, those are the only actions you're doing. It's very simple mechanically. You're taking 1 unit of time for everybody to do one thing, and at some point you're going to leave this location. And at that point, you'd all collaboratively decide where to go. Maybe you go to the dormitory, and then you would grab the dormitory room and lay it out. So essentially, you would basically take these cards, keep them in the right order, put them to the bottom of the stack, and then go find the dormitory and put that room out in the same spot. And you would take your guys off, and you would then decide which rooms you're going to locate, go into the first time for this room. And that first location doesn't cost you any additional time. However, when you do move, you have to roll the time die. And so once you've moved to a location, you roll this die, and it's going to have 1, 2, or 3 time units. And that's how much time it took to get to that new location, and then you'd put it out, and you'd basically, everyone would do what I just showed you. That's pretty much the whole game. You're going into a location, spending time to do actions, you're fighting things, you're doing some challenges, you're finding items, and you're trying to write notes and figure out this puzzle all the way till it gets to the end, and then you're redoing it again, using what you've learned to narrow down where you need to look to try to solve the end puzzle, and it will probably take 4 to 6 hours to finish a scenario. And in general, that's how you play Time Stories. Now, I do want to mention this game has like a save feature. Now, of course, when you get to the end of each run, you pretty much start over from scratch. But if you're in the middle of a run and you want to save the game, it's really cool. You put all your pawns here. Any health tokens or any other tokens they have goes in the combination of, shows you what items they have. They also have a small pawn for each color. You can put the items and the cards that they have there to keep those. You'd also put the room that you're currently in there. You can put some tokens on there. You can also keep track of how much time you have left. Maybe you have 10, 14 time left. So it's a really cool way that you can stop a game in the middle of it and save it. Whoa, this game came out of left field for me and just absolutely blew my mind in every regard. I am not typically someone who likes super story-driven games where you're reading a lot of text on cards. I don't know, it's just something I've never enjoyed before. I do like puzzly games, and I do like cooperative games, and the artwork in this game just had me drawn to it. So let me tell you what I really like about this game. Of course, some of the things I already mentioned. The artwork really is absolutely stunning. I mean, those portraits, and every time you go to a location, it just looks amazing. And then the storylines that go along with it. This game is probably more of an immersive feeling playing a board game that I've felt in a long time, and possibly ever. I really loved being immersed in this story. Now, the gameplay itself, I like how it's quite simple mechanically. You're just either moving, trying to roll some dice, or doing nothing, and then together you may or may not go to another location. But even with those simple mechanics, wow, what a story where you're trying to go through. Now, when I was a kid, I played these video games, computer games. They were adventure computer games like Curse of the Monkey Island and like Maniac Mansion or Day of the Tentacle. And it was like these point and clicks where you'd go and you would explore rooms and you'd find an item and you'd figure out where to use it and you'd use different characters. I loved those as a kid, but once you play those games, once you've finished it, you probably won't play it again unless, it's been a while and you kind of forget all the details. This is sort of that same thing, so it's sort of an odd thing there where it's consumable, right? So the game takes between 60 and 90 minutes to play each run, right? And then it will take, 4 to 6 runs to finish a scenario that comes with this game. And this is a problem that some people are going to have with the game. And I'll tell you what, I don't really think, at least for me, it's not a problem, but you need to be aware about, it's consumable, right? But before I get there, the adventure, wow. Okay, so a lot of people like to watch things on TV, like sports and such, like myself, but I will always say that baseball is a sport that's actually better when you listen to it on the radio from a good announcer than watching on TV, because it lends itself to your imagination. You hear somebody telling you in general what's happening, and your imagination paints the picture of what's going on. This game really does that. This is the thing that really immerses this game, is that when somebody else reads the card, it's genius that they can't just read it verbatim, because first of all, you wouldn't be listening to them anyways. You'd probably be staring off into the sunset. But when they put the card down and then they get into the picture and they get into the role and they actually explain to you what's going on, it's amazing. It's so cool. That is the best. I actually enjoy more learning about what other people are doing in their rooms and what's happening than me reading the card that's in my room. So that's the immersive experience that really makes this game great, and the puzzly aspect awesome. So as you go down to the end of the run, you gotta take notes. You're trying to figure out this puzzle together. You get to the end of the run and you're like, okay, what did we learn? Okay, don't go there. That's a dead end. We don't really need this. We don't know if we need this. So let's try to go explore some more in this next run and try to figure out what the rest of the story is. And then maybe on the third run, we'll try to get everything we really need to be efficient. Overall, I really loved this. What an experience this was. Now, I will say that this whole thing about consumable, sure. Now, online, the game is $34, right? Now, if you got 4 players and you play it for 4 to 5 hours, it's still cheaper than each person going to the movies. So I would say you go to the movies, you pay your dollars, you go there $10, you know, they pay a movie, you see it, after 2 hours, you walk out, you're done. With this, you're gonna get 4 to 6 hours of game, and you're still going to be spending, you know, per hour, less per person than the movies. So I don't, and this is the way you got to look at this. It's a consumable thing. Now it comes with the game, this of course though, and the subsequent stories are going to be about $21 online. So it's even cheaper, right? So if you amortize that cost of the game with the other stories, it gets even cheaper. But even if you just buy this one game and scenario and you played through it and you enjoyed it, it's still cheaper than the movie. So I think it's hogwash saying that people are not going to want to do this. It's entertainment. It's still cheaper than most other entertainments out there. It's just different from the normal board game. So I think it's fine. Now, player count, the more the merrier. 4 is the best because everyone's doing their thing. You're going to learn from other people. And as I mentioned, it's immersive listening to other people tell you what's going on. So the more people doing it, the better. As you go down to 3 players, you know, there's a little less of that. You get compensated for having less players. But again, you're going to be reading a little bit more and hearing a little bit less. With 2 players, again, it's even more, right? You play 2 characters. Now, I've heard people say this game's unplayable with 2. If you want the best immersion experience, yes, 4 is the best. I wouldn't say though, if you're someone that really loves puzzles and cooperative stuff, I think you could still enjoy this with 2, with going through it and enjoying the puzzle together and just reading half of what you normally would or hearing half of what you normally would. I wouldn't say don't play it with 2. I just say it's best with 4, but I wouldn't say throw it away at 2 like some people have said. So that's pretty much it. Time Stories, it blew my mind. I think it's an excellent immersion. Wow, it took me by storm, and I cannot wait to play the other scenarios. I'm definitely going to be buying the other ones because this is an amazing experience. I don't typically like long games, but this is one game that I would not mind sitting down on a Saturday and playing for 4 to 6 hours in one swoop with somebody. Also, that little save game mechanic is pretty cool, although we usually play 1 at a time at least of the runs, so I haven't had needed to use it, but it's cool that it's there. What an effort, what an immersion, what artwork. Awesome design, awesome idea. That's Time Stories. So I'm going to try something new here. Anytime I have a game, and I'm going to keep it in my collection, which doesn't happen very often anymore. You may not know that I'm also a saxophone player, music producer, and do a lot of things around music. So I thought in a creative, personal way, I'd like to give a sort of an exclamation point when I am going to keep a game, and we're just going to call it the Game Boy Geeks Jam. And I'll do this on my saxophone anytime I keep a game. Here's one for this one.